morning, guys. Good morning. Welcome to Sloth Mode Restorative. Today, if you have a bolster, grab that. If not, just grab a couple of blankets. These woven blankets are really great. Hold on. There we go. Sorry about that. These woven blankets are really great because they're nice and firm. They're not too smushy. So if you don't have a bolster, grab a couple of those kinds of blankets. If you do have a bolster, just grab your bolster. Do you want to come on out and say hi?
No, it's just I want to tell you something.
Okay, not right now because it's yoga time, okay? Give me 1 hour. Daddy will be in just a minute.
After we get our Christmas tree, I really wish we would decorate it.
We are.
Yay!
Okay, I love you. I'll see you soon, you big baboon. Sorry. And then a couple of blankets if you don't have the bolster. Also, one additional blanket that we will be using to cover ourselves at the end for Shavasana. And 2 blocks. 2 blocks, a bolster and or 2 blankets, and an extra blanket for warmth. So these are our props today. Do you want to come practice with me? She's been really into practicing yoga lately, so I figured I'd start inviting her. Maybe she's a future teacher. So we're going to come to the top of our mat, feet flat on the floor, knees are bent. Hug the knees. Just wrap your arms around the shins. Take a big breath in and think about lifting up through the heart and dropping those shoulders down. Just a couple breaths here. And as you exhale, we're going to tuck the tailbone under, press that mid-spine back, tuck the chin down towards the heart. Just give yourself a few breaths to settle into this posture. So just breathing into the back body, breathing down into the hips. Feeling the breath sort of expand the space within you. And as you exhale, let go of any tension that was sort of living within those spaces. With your next exhale, we're just going to press into the toes, peel those heels off of the mat, and sort of float on the sit bones for a moment. From here, you can tuck the tailbone and slowly roll on back, kick the legs back and forth. Kind of kicking the legs back helps to get a little momentum going in the body so we can give a gentle massage to the spine. And the next time you roll back, we're just going to lower all the way down to the spine. Release those feet flat onto the floor. Take those arms out wide like the letter T, palms face up. And give yourself a few breaths here, just pressing into feet. Lift those hips up, walk the shoulders gently away from the ears. And let's heel toe those feet to the width of the mat. Let the knees rest in. And just start getting with breath here. Become still for a few breaths, letting go of our expectations or judgments or labels or ideals. Just start dropping down into that groundless state, getting with breath. Softening the face. Notice if there's any furrowing in the brow. Any tension holding in the temple or the jaw. And really allowing that breath to just flow down into the tips of the toes. Every exhale, softening back. And on your exhale, we're going to float those knees away from one another. So knees are above the ankles here. Ooh, big stretch. If you'd like, you can widen through all 10 fingers, press down into those feet, and then just gently feel the belly button draw back to the front of the spine to support it as we widen through all 10 fingers. Just feel this little bit of length in the spine. On your next exhale, we're going to take both knees off to the right, so the feet are to the width of the mat. Take both knees off to your right, gaze moves over left shoulder. And then from here, we're going to scoop the tailbone under a little bit, pressing into the inner edge of your left foot. Take a couple of breaths here, big fat Buddha belly breaths into the low, low belly. And as you exhale, let's take both those knees off to the left. Gaze moves over the right shoulder. Again, once we kind of settle in here with the knees off to the left, press down into the inner edge of right foot and sort of scoop your tailbone under a little bit just to open up the front of the right hip a little bit more. And as you exhale, taking those knees back off to the right, gaze moves over left shoulder. Really pressing down into that inner left foot, scooping tailbone under. If you want to get a little deeper stretch into the front of this left hip, you can walk this left foot back by your bottom, and then tucking the ball of the foot, tucking the toes, press the heel down towards the mat as you scoop that tailbone under. Just be mindful of the knee here. If you start to feel any pinching in the knee, ease back a bit.
I got an extra money case for Daddy.
Nice.
It's funny.
Hey Mama, if you're gonna come out here, it's yoga time. We're gonna take the knees off to the left and gaze over the right shoulder. And then if you want to deepen that stretch across the front of the right hip, again, you can just keep that foot where it is and sort of press into the inner edge of the right foot and tuck your tailbone a little bit. Or you can do all of the above and walk the right foot closer to your right glute. And I'll show again on this side for anybody who's just joining in. You'll tuck the toes and the ball of the foot and then sort of reach the heel down. Now again, sometimes this can put a little bit of compression in the knee, back of the knee, or really pull on the knee. And if this creates any pinching or discomfort, then just walk that foot back down to where it was or somewhere in the middle, rather than forcing it. Next exhale, we're going to roll those knees back to center. I woke up super late, so I kind of just threw whatever on, and I'm sliding out of my clothes, I think. So with your exhale, we're going to bring those knees back to center. Knees are stacked over ankles. Hug those knees into the belly. Cross right ankle over left and grab a hold of the outer edges of those feet. And then we're just going to kind of let those feet float up so that they're just behind the knees. They don't have to be just behind the knees, but that's the direction we're moving them. So just let those feet slide up until you find them where they're, comfortable. We don't want to push too far. And then from here, we're just going to rock it side to side, giving a gentle massage to that low back and sacrum. So I just thought I'd mention this because back issues are fairly common in our society. The sciatic nerve, right? Sciatica. A lot of us have heard of sciatica. So sciatica can be caused by, inflammation in the piriformis muscle, which is the muscle that runs underneath the sacrum and attaches to the tops of the femurs. And if this muscle becomes inflamed or, if it's just too tight in the space around, it can put pressure on the sciatic nerve, triggering sciatica. So as I've sort of developed my own practice, I've really become a big hip teacher, a hippie teacher, right? I focus a lot on the hips, the pelvis, and the low back, because this is the space in our body where our upper body meets our lower body, and if we don't take care of it, we're going to lose all of that movement. Next exhale, you're going to switch the cross of the ankles. Same thing, holding on to the outer edges of the feet. Just slide those feet towards your knees until the body says, okay, that's enough. And we'll rock it side to side again. Taking big breaths. And there's this feeling of sort of softening down into the space of the body. And on your exhale, slowly release those legs. We're going to plant those feet just underneath the knees. Take a big breath in, plant the palms alongside your hips. Take a big breath in and scoop the tailbone under, rising up into a bridge. You can walk those feet back a tiny bit to come a little bit deeper if the body is inviting you deeper. You can interlace the fingers back behind you, getting a nice open heart here. Big Buddha belly breath. And on your exhale, release the fingers. Peel the heels off of the mat, lower down one vertebrae at a time. And then let's hug those knees into the chest. Let's just make some little knee circles here. So, excuse me, keeping the hands on the knees, we're just going to make circles in a counterclockwise direction. And as you exhale, taking those knees clockwise, moving them the other direction. And go nice and slow, go with the breath. Take your time feeling through. And with your next exhale, we're going to release the feet back down to the mat. So we're going to spend quite a bit of time here in Supta Padangusthasana. Baddha sorry, not Padangusthasana. Supta Baddha. See, that's what happens when I don't give myself enough time to wake up and have coffee. I start mixing up my words. Actually, I do that all the time. So you're going to get your bolster. If you don't have your bolster, you're going to grab your 2 or 3 blankets stacked on top of one another so that you've got a little bit of lift. And then we are just going to place the knees over the bolster, feet flat on the floor. Bring your hands back behind you. Fingertips are facing your sit bones. Take a big breath in, pressing back into those hands. Lift up through the heart. As you exhale, walk the hips back just a little bit. Lower on down. all the way through the spine, lower all the way down. Nice long spine over the mat. We're going to take the arms up like a cactus and then let the feet rest together. Soles of feet together, knees are apart, resting over the bolster. You want to have some support for the calves and the shins here. You don't want to just have your feet here. So have a little support for calves and shins as well. And just get with breath. Big old fat Buddha belly breaths in. Just allow yourself to be here. There's no rush to go anywhere. We're letting go of the list of to-dos. We're just coming to be where we are, allowing the body to rest over the bolster, feeling supported, noticing what's coming up in the mind as we lay here. Just know that we all have thoughts that come and go in the mind. That's what the mind does. The mind thinks. And as we come into a meditation or an asana practice, we start to kind of either get really busy in the mind and have to kind of not focus on those thoughts, or we kind of cling to those thoughts, or these are just tendencies, right? So the idea with thoughts as they come to us in a meditation or a physical asana practice is to think of your mind like a white or a blue sky. And those thoughts that are coming into the mind, they're just little white clouds passing through the sky. You are more than welcome to observe them. Observe those thoughts without too much critical thinking, of course. Just notice the thoughts, like, oh, there's that thought. I wonder where that came from. And getting back to the breath. So anytime we notice that the mind is getting too busy, or the thoughts that we're having are triggering, they're triggering for our emotions, or maybe they're triggering for a physical pain, like say you've got a right hip that gives you trouble on a regular basis, and in this moment you're just not paying attention to it, you're not really feeling it, but all of a sudden you think of it, and now that physical pain starts to, that's all you can focus on at the moment. So as these thoughts or these triggers start to come up, what we do is we come back to breath. We recognize where we are in this current moment. I'm laying on the floor in my yoga room. I know that my daughter is inside and she's ready to go get a Christmas tree. And any thoughts that come into my mind about that are, conditioned triggers from the life that I've lived, I will just come back to breath, come back to this physical sensation in my body. It just feels good to have my feet on this bolster and be in this position. So just coming to the present moment can be like one of the most valuable tools in life, to just be present. And sometimes it can be really hard to foster the ability to be present because we're so used to gotta be here, gotta do this, gotta write my to-do list, gotta get this done, gotta get that done. So we don't need to overcomplicate things. It's as simple as just being right where you are, noticing how you're feeling, noticing the thoughts you're having. And if any of those sensations or thoughts take most of your concentration, then just come back to your breath. Because prana, our life force, rides on the breath. Well, and then there's also prana, the breath, right? Breath of life. So just every exhale, feel the back body sinking deeper into the support of the earth. Feel those legs completely supported over the bolster. Over your next few breaths, we're going to use the inhales to notice if there are any spaces in the body that have yet to release their tension. So with your next inhale, bring your awareness to the crown of the head, the scalp. Notice if there's any tension just clinging to the scalp. And as you exhale, just imagine the scalp resting over the skull, just like a tablecloth over a table. Bring your awareness down into the temples. The forehead and the brow line. Softening the brow line, relaxing the forehead. Allow the eyes to sink back, resting into their sockets. We'll bring our awareness to the jaw and that little space right behind the ears, running down the back of the neck. Breathe into this space with a sense of curiosity, exploration. And as you exhale, we're letting go of any tension clinging in those areas. Bring awareness down to the shoulders, the collarbone. And as you breathe in, think of that inhale as sort of a tension seeker. Not a tension seeker, but a tension, as in T-E-N-S-I-O-N, tension seeker. And it's seeking out those little spaces in the body with tension on the inhale. And on your exhale, we're just letting go of any tension in the shoulders, the collarbones, the upper chest here. Bring your awareness down into the arms. We're going to switch it up a bit. So bring the awareness down into the hands here. And notice if you're holding any tension in the fingers, in the fingertips. You can wiggle the fingers around a little bit and just feel through them for a moment. And as you exhale, just let any tension drain out of the fingertips. We're going to come to the base of the fingers now and notice if we're holding any tension in the base of the fingers. Breathe into that space. Let the inhale sort of expand that space, and as you exhale, imagine the tension just leaving on the breath out. Bring your awareness into the palms of the hands, backs of the hands. Again, releasing any tension holding. Bring the awareness into wrists, forearms, and elbows. Upper arms, and just let these arms be like anchors, dead weight sinking into the earth. Now we're going to bring our awareness into the rib cage here and the sternum. So just quick anatomy on the sternum. We know we've got the rib cage here. There's a point if you come to the front of your ribs where the ribs meet. That's the xiphoid process, the very tip of your sternum. The sternum runs down, that's basically your chest plate, right? The sternum's right here at the center of the ribs. So bring your awareness here into the ribs, even into the backs of the ribs, the back body. And just breathe into this thorax, this cavity of the body where the organs live. And imagine the breath just swirling around, bringing everything in the body into a state of balance, into a state of harmony. Inhale, we might notice where we're holding on to some tension, and as we exhale, we're just letting it go, letting it drain out of the body. And allow that breath to trickle down into the deep, deep low belly, all the way into the perineum. Like I tell Abby, breathe into your bottom. It's a feeling of breathing all the way down into your bottom. And we'll start to allow that awareness to shift into the hips, noticing what you're feeling in your hips. Noticing where you might be feeling stuck. Maybe there's places in the body where the breath feels like it just can't really get in there quite so deep. And that's okay. I think we all have that from time to time. Practicing deep breathing, diaphragmatic breathing on a regular basis can really help with this, right? Because we become a lot more conscious of the breath drawing down in the belly. We might even intentionally stick our bellies out on the breath in. And this helps to kind of tone that abdominal wall. It helps to tone the diaphragm, keep it sort of trained and conditioned for our breathing. So as you breathe in, if you're not a natural diaphragmatic breather, or if you haven't trained yourself to breathe using the diaphragm, just try bringing the hands to the low belly. And as you breathe in, you'll press that low belly out into the hands, and as you breathe out, go ahead and let it rest back. Now, we're not pushing so hard that we give ourselves a hernia, but we are, just allowing that breath to billow the belly out. And as you exhale, just coming back to the backs of the hands on the mat, noticing the breathing. And bring your awareness now to the thighs and this hip crease here, in this little space of the body. So this is what we call the hip crease, right? Where the thigh meets the hip. This is the point where we can bring the thigh into flexion or extension. Such a cool joint. We have so much mobility in this joint. Socket joints, right? The shoulders and the hips. So just bringing your awareness down into this section of the body. Feel the breath as though as it draws in through the nose, down into the lungs, down into the body, into the cavity, the thoracic cavity, and down into the hip bowl. Continue that breath in, and it draws down the thighs, nourishing that central line of the femur, down the center of the bone even. And just feel the tension leaving the outer hips especially. They tend to kind of get a little bit of compression with the knees out to the sides. So just really release any tension that you're holding on to in those outer hips. We don't need to hold ourselves up here. If you are feeling that it's starting to get a little uncomfortable in those outer hips or low back, what you can do is bring your blocks into it by just bringing the blocks underneath the outer thighs to support the legs a little bit so it's not so deep. And that's if it's starting to compress in the outer hip or you're feeling any discomfort. Even if it's pulling too much on the groins, the inner thighs, bring those blocks into it. That'll really ease it up a bit. And then we're going to bring that awareness down into the knees. So just noticing how you're feeling in the knees, allowing the breath to swirl around there. Letting go with every exhale. Bringing awareness into the shins and the calves, noticing how you're feeling here. And bringing awareness down into the ankles, the feet, and the toes. Let's just start moving those feet around a little bit. So your feet are together, but we're going to draw the toes towards the shins. And then bring the balls of the feet together, heels apart. And if you are feeling comfortable here, to take those feet or those ankles into circular motion. So just kind of rolling through ankles. Stay in the position we're in and just kind of roll through those ankles. You're going to take another big breath in, and as you exhale, slide those hands underneath the outer legs. Bring the knees together. Hug the knees into the chest. Let those feet just kind of hang out here. Keep the sacrum on the floor. Keep the shoulders on the floor. So if you're someone who's tight in the shoulders, you might notice that your shoulders want to float up. No big deal. I just would rather you bring a strap into it, or a dish towel, or even a body towel. Bath towel, to wrap around the fronts of the legs and keep those shoulders down. Also, tension in the low back might be seen as those hips floating off of the mat. Try to keep the hips down, even if that means the knees aren't as close to the chest. And then as you exhale, we're going to let those knees drop out wide. Keeping the hands over the shins or the knees, we're just going to let those knees drop out. Take a few breaths here. Really breathe down into the bottom for this one. So you want to feel the breath moving all the way down into the base of the spine. And then on an exhale, we're going to float those feet up, coming into happy baby pose. So you're holding onto the outer edges of the feet. Again, straps can be useful here. The other day, I had someone using headbands. So the headbands wrapped around the feet, and then you hold on to the top of the headband. So if you're pulling here and your whole shoulders coming off the floor, that kind of defeats the purpose. We want to be able to relax the body here And just give a little bit of weight to the legs to help open up in the hips. And on an exhale, release those feet. We're going to go ahead and roll off to one side or the other. Give yourself a few breaths. And then exhaling to press up to a seated position. Let's come on to our hands and knees. I'm going to move the bolster out of the way, but keep it within reach for now. So coming on to hands and knees. First, come into your tabletop pose. Activate the belly. So as you exhale, feel that belly button just gently draw in to support the spine. It's not like we're doing 1,000 crunches or anything like that. We're just gently allowing it to draw towards the spine to support it like a magnet. Wrists, elbows, and shoulders are in a pretty straight line. Of course, if you've got longer arms, you might want to walk those hands a little further forward. That's fine. So if you find that this just feels really weird to have the wrists under the elbows and the elbows under the shoulders, play with it. Give yourself permission to walk those hands a little bit further forward. Same goes for the knees. So, right, some people might have a longer femur bone than I do. Bringing my knees under my hips feels pretty good to me. But if you've got longer legs, it might not feel so good. So feel free to walk the knees further back. If you have shorter legs, you might want to walk the knees further forward. So these rules that we have in yoga as far as alignment goes, like knees and your tabletop, knees under hips, they're guidelines. They're not solidified rules that you must abide, right? The dude never abides, by the way. So gazing down at the mat in between the hands, we're going to lengthen the spine. Take a big breath in and imagine that in between each vertebrae, there's a disc at each vertebrae. In between each vertebrae, there's the disc, right? This is kind of like our shock system in the physical or in the human body. It's like a shock system on a car. It keeps from too much compression wearing all those parts out. So as you breathe in, I want you to imagine each one of those discs in between each vertebrae of the spine is a balloon. And as you breathe in, you are lengthening the spine by creating more space in between each vertebrae. And as you exhale, tuck the tailbone under, press away into those hands, scoop that mid-spine up towards the ceiling, and then we're just going to rock those hips gently side to side. Just finding some more length through the intercostal muscles in between the ribs, through the side body. And on your next exhale, come back into a tabletop. As you inhale, we're going to arch the spine. So lifting sit bones up. Keep that belly active here. This really helps to support the spine and also creates a nice stretch for the tummy. So as you lengthen, heart floating forward, we're sort of opening up the arms. There's a little bit of an external rotation here. And I'm just going to show what that is because I remember when I learned it, it was kind of a foreign concept. So here is, I gotta take this sweatshirt off. You can't really see my arms. Okay. So here is internal rotation of my arms, right? If my arms were overhead, it would be like that. So it doesn't really look like internal rotation with the arms over my head, but right here, internal rotation, internal rotation. This is external rotation, right? The eyes of the elbows, what I call the eyes of the elbows, would be facing outwards, and we want this in our downward facing dog. It's also really nice to practice external rotation in the arms when we've got the arms overhead, because watch this. I'll get a little closer so you can see. Watch this. Arms overhead, here's my internal rotation. Where do my shoulders go? My shoulders go up to my ears. When I rotate, external rotation of the arms, my shoulders drop down away from the ears naturally, kind of counteracting that uptight tension that we hold in the shoulders. So external rotation. Kind of like, I don't know if anybody else did this when you were a kid, but when I was a kid, we used to be like, look, I'm double jointed, yeah. It's kind of like that. But eyes of the elbows facing out. Just think that, eyes of the elbows facing out. So here we're going to do the same thing. Notice what happens. I'm going to show you my internal rotation. Internal rotation, just notice that little bit of space that I lose in the neck. And external rotation of the arms, my shoulders glide down my back. Yes.
I made a little bit of pretty pictures.
I can't wait to see it. Would you like to quietly come out here and practice yoga? Or would you like to give me just a few more minutes?
I just want to show you all these pictures.
Will you show me after class? Class is done in about 20 minutes, okay?
Let's put them right here.
Oh, beautiful. How about in 15 minutes, I'll have you come out and you could show everybody your pictures.
Okay.
Okay? I love you. So just one more time. Here's that internal rotation. See what happens to the shoulders. Here's that external rotation. Notice how it's a lot easier to slide those shoulders away from the ears. Also will help to strengthen the triceps, the backs of the arms. Anyways, so inhaling, arch that spine. Nice long neck. We want to be mindful of the neck as well. So for many years, I'd practice like as far as I could go, and it ended up causing an injury to the back of the neck. So anytime you're coming into spinal extension, which is a quote unquote back bend, which this is a back bend, you want to think about, yes, getting as much length out of the spine as possible, but rather than thinking of folding, you want to think of lengthening, right? So we're not going to draw the chin way up towards the heavens. We're going to lengthen up through the top of the head, and then maybe we'll take a little bit of a length in the front of the neck as well by drawing the chin forward. Exhale to tuck those toes and lift those lifted sit bones up to the sky. So we're coming into a downward facing dog. And we're just going to bring right knee towards nose. So if you'd like, you can inhale the right leg back and then exhale right knee to nose and come into the pigeon pose. Or you could just bring that right knee forward if you'd rather not come into three-legged dog first. Up to you. So just a couple things in this pigeon pose. You're more than welcome to use support. So we're going to start with straight up pigeon pose and we're going to move it into sleeping swan in just a moment here. So have your props nearby if the back knee is bothering you. Just a couple of little tips here. If it's scar tissue, if it's a knee injury, I really suggest bringing a blanket into it, placing that blanket not really under the knee. You can place a blanket under the knee, but you want this more above the knee, kind of to keep the pressure off of the knee. So that will just keep that space and that pressure off of the knee. It'll keep it on the thigh instead. Another thing we can do, if it's not so much a knee injury or a bunch of scar tissue in the knee, you can tuck the back toes, and that helps to take some of the pressure off the back knee. If you don't need to keep a blanket under the knee or you don't need to keep the toes tucked, just keep the top of the foot down. And be mindful that you're not sickling the foot. Keep that outer ankle sort of gently pressing in. Of course, this is a really mellow, restorative practice, so there's no need to put any major effort into anything. And if you're feeling that you really have to focus on holding something in a position, I want you to adjust it because I want you to let go and relax as we come into these postures. I've been asked many times, what am I supposed to do with the front leg? It's different for all of us. Some people are really open in that outer hip and they can have their knee in a right angle, in a 90-degree angle, and the shin parallel to the top of the mat. Well, that's not me. That might not be you. For some of us, we're pretty tight in those hips and we've got that foot under the pubic bone. And we're working on bringing that foot forward and letting the hip drop to the mat. So just be real with yourself. It doesn't define you if you can't bring your shin parallel to the top of the mat, right? I mean, and that's what I mean by labels and expectations and judgments. Let go of those. You might come into a hip opener and hear that internal dialogue and not even realize that you're saying to yourself that you suck because your hips are too tight. There's no reality to that. So we're letting go of those fixed beliefs that really don't make any sense by kind of questioning them. we become aware of those thoughts and we say, well, hello, I don't really pay very much attention to you. It looks like you've been believing this for such a long time and you really don't need to. Lots of different ways to unravel our conditioning in the mind. So as you exhale, we can lower down to forearms, get those elbows under the shoulders, and just hang out here. You can bring your hands to Anjali Mudra, or what I call the Charlie's Angels Mudra, where we're interlacing all fingers except for the pointer and the thumb, and you've got your little Charlie's Angels thing going on here, pressing the thumbs into the forehead. You're just going to let the forehead rest onto the thumbs. And we've got those thumbs just above the brow, not at the hairline, but right about the brow line. Right? You'll feel it. It feels, once you get to that right spot, it feels good. And it brings our awareness inward. So if this isn't feeling comfortable, if you don't like having the fingers on the face, you could bring this bolster down, and the end of the bolster just in front of the right shin, sort of hook your belly over the bolster and just come to reclined over the bolster. That's what I'm going to do today. It feels so good. And then just get with your breath. We're letting go of our expectations, our judgments, our labels. And labels is another important one. You know, we have all these labels we don't even realize that we've given ourselves. Some of them, you know, society has given us, and some of them we've labeled ourselves. And we're going to just shed all of those, right? Maybe you've had children, so society calls you a mother or a father. You probably have a mother or a father, so somebody probably calls you a daughter or a son. Maybe your weight has fluctuated all your life and you call yourself fat. That's a label that you've given yourself. So as you breathe here, every inhale, just allow your consciousness to do what it does. Let it notice sound, thought, sensation, smell, cold and warmth. And as you exhale, any labels that pop up in your mind, I want you to just kind of release your grip on that. So we're not pushing it away and saying, oh, I gotta stop thinking that, you know. We're just allowing the breath to help us release our grasp, our clinging to it. And at first, maybe the fist is still tight, but as we exhale, maybe that grip loosens, and maybe we're not able to let go of those labels or those thoughts or those expectations right away. But over time, the grip loosens, and when the hand is open, those things will just float away on the breeze on their own, right? It's kind of like that. Couple more breaths here. And as you exhale, we're going to walk those hands back. You can slide the bolster, blanket, whatever support you're using, or no support, out of the way. Tuck the back toes. This is one of the simplest ways to get out of this one. Walk that back knee forward. Tuck the toe, walk the back knee forward. And do this until you get to a place where you can peel that right leg out from under you and extend the right leg back. And tuck those right toes, press into the right heel. You can kind of rock it forward and back. Nothing too crazy. We're not pounding on the body. We're just gently bouncing, I guess. And on an exhale, we're going to come back into our tabletop. So take a big breath in, lengthening through spine. Feel the belly button gently draw back to support the spine. And we're just going to imagine that each disc in between each vertebrae is a balloon. And as you're breathing into the nose, That air just travels down the length of the spine, filling up each balloon, creating a little bit more space in between each vertebrae. And as you exhale, tuck the tailbone, scoop the belly back, press the floor away. You can even rise up to fingertips and deepen this. Maybe we're wagging the tail a little bit, right ear towards right hip, left ear towards left hip, keeping the spine curved like a cat. And exhale back through tabletop. We're going to inhale into our cow. So arching the spine, neck is long. We're not craning the neck and sticking the throat out. We're getting nice and long all the way through the spine. And exhale to tuck those toes, press back into your downward facing dog. And your choice here. So you can either just bring that left knee up and forward into a pigeon pose, or you can inhale the left leg back into a three-legged dog and exhale the left knee forward in between those hands. Again, back knee bothering you, bring a blanket just above the knee to the thigh. You could also keep the back toes tucked. This really helps. And if you've got the top of that back foot down, try not to sickle the foot too much. We want to find some evenness on the top of that right leg. Take a few breaths here with a nice long spine. And as you exhale, lower on down to forearms. You can interlace the pinky ring and middle fingers. Pointer and thumb are palm together. Thumbs at the forehead, or you can lower on down to the support of bolster or blanket and just lay over that, your choice. Get with your breath. So letting go of expectations, I think of like this. When I was a little girl, if I was going to a party or there was something I was going to, maybe not even a little girl, teenager, right? I'd have all these ideas in my head of what it was going to be like. And it's going to be like that, and it's going to look like this, and the imagination gets going, which is great. But you have it already played out in your head, the way that it's going to be. The expectation is set. Then you would go to the party, or I would go to the party, and I would not enjoy myself because it wasn't the way that I thought it should be. That is the definition of expectations and how they can impact our joy in life. So when we come onto the mat and when we practice this mindfulness and when we practice letting go of our attachments, our expectations, or our judgments, or our labels, essentially what we're doing is we're clearing out the preconceived notions, we're clearing out the expectations, we're clearing out what our mind can come up with, because it's limited. It's limited to, well, it's not really limited. The mind is vast and can come up with a lot of crazy shit, man. But, in a moment, it's only going to come up with so much, right? And the possibilities are limitless. And leaving ourselves open to that, that openness for life to happen, it's pretty miraculous, the way that it can change your experience. So just in the next week or so before we meet again, maybe start bringing that into your daily practice or your daily life. And some of the ways that I've found to become more mindful of what expectations I'm having is to kind of have like short meetings with myself throughout the day as the day is going on. I might be washing a dish or driving in the car and just check in with myself. What expectations do I have of this day? And maybe I could shift that from an expectation into an intention. Like, I intend to do this. I have no idea what this day is going to bring, but my intention is to be clear-headed as I walk through this day, or to walk through this day with kindness no matter what it brings, or to foster self-compassion as I move through this day knowing that I have these things to do. So mindfulness, yoga, meditation, it's not about stepping away from the world and pretending like you're not a part of it. It's finding a better, more centered and peaceful way to be a part of the world without losing your mind. Few more breaths here. Just really breathe deep into those hips. And we're letting go of those labels and expectations. For the next couple of breaths, we'll tuck those back toes, bring the hands under the shoulders, rise off of the support, whatever you're using. If you need to, you can move it out of your way. And then with those back toes tucked, we're just going to walk the knee forward until we can slip that left knee out from underneath us, tuck the left toes, and just kind of rock it back and forth. On your exhale, go ahead and come back into your hero's pose. Knees are over the mat, or shins and knees are on the mat. Heels are underneath the sit bones. We're going to go ahead and rise on up. So rising into little baby back bend as you exhale, scoop the tailbone under, lift up through the heart, draw those thumbs back, take a big breath in. And exhale all the way to your child's pose. You can take the knees out to the width of the mat. If you prefer the thighs underneath the legs, go ahead and just keep them underneath your legs. Just give yourself a few breaths here. If you'd like, you can come into your Shavasana. If you're not really in the mood for child's pose. For some with knee troubles, child's pose can be pretty uncomfortable. A way to remedy that is bolster underneath the torso is one way to kind of lighten up that tension. And another thing we can do is to take maybe a rolled up yoga mat or a blanket back behind the thighs, in between the thighs, or hamstrings and calves, I guess I should say. And I will show right there. Right? So those are a couple ways you can support yourself through a child's pose if it's uncomfortable for the knee. If that's still too deep for you, you can always message me and let me know what's hurting you in your postures, and I can always send some suggestions. All right. So after a few breaths in your child's pose, you're going to walk those hands towards the knees, come back up into your hero's pose, make your way off to one hip or the other, and start to make your way off onto the spine. Take your time though. Once you've got yourself lined up on the spine, we're going to lower down to those forearms, elbows under shoulders, lengthen through the heart here for a moment. And as you exhale, tuck the tailbone, walk those forearms further forward, mid-spine, shoulders, walking away from the ears. Reset your hips. Hug those knees in for a second. And when you're ready, we'll extend 1 foot at a time to each corner of the mat. If you're feeling any pain in the low back, bring your bolster or a few blankets underneath your knees. This will just lighten that load a little bit. I'm cold out here. I need to get a space heater for my yoga space. It's cold. So So we're here in our Shavasana. If you're finding that your body is holding on to a lot of tension, or if you're finding that there's like rampant energy just kind of ping-ponging all over the place in your body, or even if the mind is really active and you just can't seem to relax, take a big breath in and hold it. You're going to flex the feet. You're going to make fists with the hands. You're going to squeeze every muscle in your body. You're going to scrunch your face up really tight, like you're having a fit. And then as you exhale, you're just letting it all go. Sometimes we need to feel what holding on is in order to truly let go. And now we're just focusing on the breath. If the eyes are super duper active, you can keep them open, but it's best to keep them closed for Shavasana. So just allow those eyes to sink back into their sockets. Soften the face. Allow everything to sort of drip away. Really letting go with every exhale. Every inhale is a reminder that you're alive. Every exhale is a reminder that right now is the only moment we're guaranteed. Allow everything to just float away for a moment. Allow the inhales to draw all the way into the tips of your toes, into fingertips. And over your next few breaths, I want you to imagine that the inhale is just like a flashlight. And you're shining your flashlight on these different areas of the body from the inside. If you ever saw the Magic School Bus, it's kind of like that, going inside of your own body to see what's happening. And with every inhale, you're just dropping down like a magnet into whichever space you physically or emotionally or energetically feel like it needs love and healing. And as you inhale, you drop down into that space with your flashlight. And as you exhale, you're giving that spot in the body, mind, energetic system an opportunity to just be. Inhale, gathering love, healing, an energetic light shining on that spot, that space, that energy. And as you exhale, you're letting go of anything else, any tension. over the next few breaths, we're going to allow that breath to draw in a bit deeper. And over the next few breaths, maybe taking a big fat stretch. You can start to bend those knees when you're ready. And take your time rolling off to one side or the other. Taking a few breaths here in the fetal position. When you're ready, use the help of the hands to press on up to a seated position. And just come on to your easy seated position, either half lotus or full lotus. It's chilly. And take a few breaths here with the eyes gently closed. Nice long spine. And just let your essence sort of come to you now. There's this compassionate feeling that we start to develop within ourselves. For me, it started towards others first, and then I was able to direct that same kind of compassion towards myself. For others, it starts with compassion within, and then it moves outwards, and sometimes it's both. And sometimes it's a bunch of different ways that we learn to have more compassion for humanity, including ourselves. But in this moment, let's just kind of take a warm and loving look at ourselves. And that doesn't mean, we're looking in the mirror. It doesn't mean that we're breaking it down pragmatically, who we are, how we're valuable, but we're just looking at ourselves as, you were a baby, you were born, and you've experienced suffering, and you've experienced joy, and you have strong points, and you have parts of yourself that you probably wish you could change, and some of those things can change, and some of those things can't change, and some of those things should change, and some of those things shouldn't change, right? But can you love yourself just like this? Can you smile upon yourself just like this? In the process of growing and evolving and changing, when I was in my 20s is I think when I finally stopped asking that question, who am I? I was always a big seeker, seeking knowledge, seeking wisdom, seeking information, trying to learn more about myself, trying to define who I was and put myself in this little box like, I am a musician, I'm an artist, I'm a mom, I'm a yogi, I'm a blah, 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 blah. And at this point, yes, I do a lot of these things, but I just am, and I'm in evolution constantly. So knowing that about ourselves and knowing that we are always changing, some things are slow to change and some things not at all, right? But just be able, after your Shavasana, being able to come and sit and let that space of your body be a warm, comforting blanket, happy place to live, a supportive place to live, and allow that internal dialogue to shift from maybe mindless or critical or plain out mean to supportive, compassionate, and loving for yourself first and for the rest of humanity second. So we'll go ahead and come back to that tall seated position, eyes closed if they are restful enough. If they're not and they're really active, and just kind of keep your gaze on a non-moving point on the floor. And allow this compassion, this love to sort of trickle in with the breath. When you're ready, we'll bring those hands to prayer position at the heart. When we say namaste, it means the divine in me is bowing to the divine in you. It means that beneath all of this mud and muck and mire that all of us humans go through, there is a beautiful spirit, an Atma, your soul, your bodhicitta. And in this space is just pure love and pure light and pure connectedness. So when we say namaste, what we're saying is, even though we're both human, the divine in me is bowing to the divine in you. Namaste. Thanks for joining me, guys. I may be changing this class to a more active class in the near future. So if anybody has any thoughts on that, if anybody's like, no, I want restorative, please message me. Please comment, share the videos with your friends, and any requests, please feel free to reach out and let me know what you are itching to try. Namaste, guys. Have a wonderful day.